If your rosemary is turning brown, or your sage looks tired, or your thyme tastes like nothing at all, I can tell you what is wrong, and it is probably not what you think. Your herbs are not dying of thirst. They are drowning. The watering can in your hand, the one you carry out of love, is the most dangerous tool in your garden. In the monastery, we learned this the hard way centuries before me, and the driest bed in our garden makes the strongest herbs we have. Stay with me, and I will show you why. I have kept the herb beds of a monastery for 40 years, and I bake our bread besides, so I spend my days between the oven and the garden. I have killed more herbs than most people will ever grow, and every one of them taught me something. By the end of this, you will have the watering rule the monks have followed for centuries. It needs no tools, no schedule, and no money. It needs one finger and a little patience. But first, you have to unlearn something, because the mistake is not carelessness. The mistake is kindness. Think about where these plants were born. Rosemary grows wild on sea cliffs, in cracks of stone, with salt wind in its face and hardly a hand of soil to its name. Thyme creeps over dry rocks that bake in the sun all summer. Sage covers hillsides that see no rain from spring to autumn. Lavender, hyssop, oregano, the same dry, bright, stony country. Not one of them ever saw rich, black earth or a daily drink. For thousands of years they fed on morning dew, deep stone, and patience. The monks who planted the first cloister gardens brought these plants north and understood something we keep forgetting. They gave them the poorest corner of the cloister, raised beds of thin, gravelly soil against a south wall where the sun stood all day and the rain ran off. You do not care for a plant by giving it what you would want. You care for it by giving it what it knew at home. And what these herbs knew at home was drought. Now here is what happens when you water them every day. Roots do not only drink, roots breathe. They need air in the soil as much as water, and soil that never dries has no air in it at all. In wet ground, the fine roots suffocate and rot, quietly, out of sight, and the plant above shows you a cruel trick. It droops, it looks thirsty, the leaves hang like they are begging for the can. So you water it again, and the rot goes deeper, and it droops harder, and you water it more. I have watched good gardeners love a rosemary to death in one wet month and blame the sun for it. There is a second harm, too. A plant that is watered every day never has to look for anything. Its roots stay in the top finger of soil, shallow and soft. The first hot week of summer, or one forgotten weekend, and it collapses because you trained it to live on charity. The overwatered herb dies thirsty. That is the whole cruelty of it. And then there is the flavor, because this is where the monks knew something the learned men only measured centuries later. The scent of rosemary, the bite of thyme, the warmth of sage, all of it lives in the oil of the leaf. And the plant makes that oil when life is a little hard. A dry week tells the herb to protect itself, and it answers with oil. Give it a soft life. Water every evening, rich soil, and it grows fast, tall, and empty. The men of science have since taken their measurements, and they found more oil in the leaves of plants that were kept a little thirsty. The monks never weighed a leaf in their lives. They only tasted the difference. Water your herbs like lettuce, and they will taste like lettuce. So why does everyone water too much? Because everything sold to you says to. The bags of potting soil are rich and black and hold water like a sponge, made for hungry flowers, not for hillside herbs. The pots are plastic and hold every drop. They're cans and hoses and drippers and apps that remind you to give water every day, because a person who waters often buys more of everything. Nobody lied to you. The tools were simply made for other plants, for lettuce and petunias and thirsty summer flowers, and the herbs got dragged into a routine that was never theirs. The old cloister garden had none of it. Poor soil, clay pots, a well, and patience, That was the whole system, and it worked for 1,000 years. I will tell you how I learned it, because I did not learn it from a book. In my 4th spring here, I was given the herb beds, and I loved them the way we all love anything new, which is to say, too much. I watered every morning and every evening. The sage grew fast and pale, then browned from the heart outward, bed after bed, and the more they suffered, the more I watered. That same year there was one sage I had no time for, a cutting stuck by the south wall behind the woodpile, in ground so poor it was half sand and stone. I never watered it once. By autumn it was the only sage alive in this garden, low and silver and strong, and when you rubbed a leaf your hand smelled of it for an hour. The plant I neglected outlived every plant I loved. I have gardened by that lesson ever since. So here is the rule, the way I would teach it to anyone who takes over these beds after me. First, the finger. Before you ever lift the can, push a finger into the soil beside the plant, down to the second knuckle. If you feel any coolness, any damp at all, walk away. Do not water a plant that is not dry. This one habit saves more herbs than everything else together. Second, when the soil is truly dry, water like rain, not like dew. Slow, deep, at the root, until water runs from the bottom of the pot or the ground refuses more. Then stop, and do not come back until the finger says dry again. Deep water makes deep roots, and deep roots make a plant that can stand a hard summer without you. People always ask me how often that comes to. There is no number, and that is the point. In a hot, dry July, it may be twice in a week. In a gray, soft week, not at all. In winter, hardly ever. The finger knows what the calendar never will. Third, water in the morning, never at night. The sun dries the leaf and the neck of the plant by noon. Water that sits through a cold night is an open door for rot. Fourth, water the soil, never the leaves. The leaf wants sun and wind. The root wants the drink. And fifth, for pots. A pot must have a true hole, and clay is better than plastic, because clay breathes the way the old hillside soil breathed. Make the soil lean, 2 parts plain earth to 1 part coarse sand, and never, ever let the pot stand in a saucer full of water. Empty the saucer. A saucer of standing water is a slow drowning that takes all month, and one honest exception, so the comments do not have to correct me. Basil is the odd one of the family. Basil drinks like a vegetable and can have the moisture the others hate. Treat basil apart and treat the hillside herbs, rosemary, sage, thyme, oregano, lavender, by the rule. So that is the answer to the question we began with. The driest bed makes the strongest herbs, because these plants were made for a hard country, and our kindness is the one thing they never learned to survive. This week, put the watering can down. Let the finger decide, not the calendar. Water deep, in the morning, at the root, and then have the patience to do nothing, which is the hardest work in any garden. And tell me below, because I read every answer. Which herb do you always lose? Name it, and tell me how you water it, and we will find the fault together. Next time I will show you what the monks planted in late summer that fed the house through winter. The garden gate is always open. Come and walk with me again.